Welcome back, everybody. You are listening to Joygasm, a video game and movie podcast. I'm Russ, Xbox Live Toaster 360. Joining me is my partner in crime, as always, Steve, Xbox Live Stevavitch. And Joygasm, the video game and movie podcast, turns 3 years old in episode 171 today, May 1st, 2020. We're going to keep things just simple and sweet. We're going to be catching up with each other, maybe doing a little bit of reminiscing over the past few years before going right into our topic of the day, which is our Streets of Rage 4 impressions, which you can fast forward to if you look at the timestamps located in the detailed section below. Steve, I cannot believe it has been 3 years.
You know, I can believe it's been 3 years.
Really?
Yeah, we have done quite a bit. We have done 3 E3s. We've talked about pretty much the life of the Xbox One because that was about the time I moved out here, and we've talked about a lot of movies, had some people on, and been doing some changes and updates and meetings, and you know, I can believe it's been 3 years.
It's been such a fun ride so far, I gotta say. I think that it keeps us busy for sure. Like, there are things that you have to do. Like, when you are in pursuit of trying to put as much as you can into the show, like, there's always things that you're striving for, that you're looking to improve and that sort of thing. But I gotta say, like, just looking back over the past 3 years, it's been a lot of fun to be able to continue to iterate on the show and just constantly have, like you said, like you have different guests on the show, or having fun with some of the production values of the show, that sort of thing. But also too, I think like it all goes back to the idea of having a creative outlet for you and I to be able to just talk with each other and also share with the rest of the world about how we feel about a lot of different things that exist within pop culture that other folks are experiencing for themselves. And I think it's also been a lot of fun with the fans and with folks who get in contact with us and be able to continue those relationships. It's been a lot of fun overall, I must say. I'm actually kind of curious. Do you have a favorite episode off the top of your head that we've done? I mean, I know that we are now at 171 episodes, but is there anything in particular that you can think of where you're just like, man, I really like that episode?
A couple of them. I like the episode that we talked about Cyberpunk 2077 for the first time when we watched the trailer that was about 48 minutes long. That was an awesome episode. I liked our review of Blade Runner 2049, and I think when the Hot Wheels package came out for Forza Horizon 3, that was a good episode.
Yes, very much so. There are a lot of different ones. I've actually been having fun listening to some of the little snippets that I had taken out as part of our marketing and advertising, where we play like a minute or two of different memorable moments from the show. And it's been a lot of fun looking back at how much of I don't know, like the show itself acts as a time capsule. And so every single episode, if you listen to for a second or third time, it's fun to be able to see what was said, not only like in terms of current events, but also like the stories that we've told have been a lot of fun to go back and listen to. And I must say, probably one of my favorite episodes is the first time when we had our topic of the day theme song and you had no idea I was going to play that, and your reaction was just priceless.
The reaction was probably like, what is this? But it was probably like, how come you're turning this up to max and my headphones about to blow out my eardrums and my eyeballs toward you?
So funny. I think the closest visual I could think of is like the Simpsons version of THX. They're all sitting there in those chairs when the THX theme sound comes on, and all of a sudden they're all like doing everything they can not to have their heads explode.
Right.
Oh man, it was good. I know that we've talked several times about how we are pushing towards video, and that's been an elusive thing for us, but just because of the goals that we've set for ourselves. And I thought it would be appropriate to be able to talk a little bit to that, just because you and I had a conversation recently about how we can actually achieve video while we are trying to finish up kind of the set dressing and getting all the components set up and that sort of thing. And you were very convincing, Steve, when you brought up the fact that we have been doing this podcast for almost 3 years at the time of this particular conversation. And you were talking about how you felt as though we should just maybe lower our expectations and be able to provide some semblance of video while we continue to finish up all the actual stuff. So it would almost be kind of like a substitute for what it is that we ultimately will do. Did you want to expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, I just kind of feel that that growing organically, just putting yourself out there and letting the audience see you, match a face to the voice and see the expressions, because you really do miss a lot with the video. I think, if someone just saw our faces move and didn't hear the audio, they'd be missing quite a bit of the experience. But the audio without the video, and in this, late year 2020, I think, we ought to be on video. You can pretty much find anything on video anyway. And I think a lot of folks would get more humor out of the show because we're typically pretty animated, not just with our hands, but our faces and movements and, voices and whatnot. So it's one thing, I think, to listen to the show and just hear our voices and kind of imagine what we might be looking like, or it's something quite different, I think, if you were actually seeing one of us trying to strangle the other or slap each other, or at least imitate that anyway, not in a physical form, but when we're doing the voices and stuff, I mean, that's pretty much, that's half the humor, I think, than actually saying something funny. And I think that goes a long way to the entertainment value and what actually makes us different than some of the other shows that do pop culture and games and movies and whatnot. So I think that would definitely enrich the experience for our viewers. And plus, I mean, I would be able to finally see you. So that's going to add something to the show as well. And, I just think it's the right thing to do. I would have liked to do this like in the very beginning when we were trying to find the best sound stage to have the purest, non-echo, non-interference, coming through the system. And we were stuck in your closet with all the clothes hanging up all around us, sharing one microphone and sitting on, folding aluminum chairs. I would have liked to have been on video then, Russ. But I've waited 3 years for your wish. I've waited a long time. I'm a patient man, but the patience is running a little bit dry. We need to go to video.
You're right. I think that when it comes to the ultimate stretch goal of what we're doing, that it has not been lost on us. We are still moving forward in terms of having that become realized. But I do think that, yeah, I mean, it's been 3 years. We're going to be starting our 4th year here. And we always had video in our minds. Like, we wanted to establish more of that type of visual relationship with our audience. But we haven't really had a chance to do that other than a scant few pictures and some little videos that we will like sprinkle on here and there. But there's nothing that's a constant. And so we are planning on purchasing a couple of webcams, and that's a far cry from what we are going to eventually be able to do. But there are just so many things that maintain that dream as something that's very fluid. And while I would like to be able to have that happen yesterday, there are just things that continue to happen, whether it's me working in California or the coronavirus, those kind of things that keep us apart. And so there are, I don't know, I guess the best way to put it would be like there's never a right time for things to be able to fall into place. How it is a constant endeavor for us to be able to like push forward and be able to do that sort of thing. But what we're looking to do is we are going to see if next episode on 172, we will be able to actually have a video recording that we can share with everybody moving forward. So if you are listening to the podcast on iTunes or Spotify or iHeartRadio, Pandora, it doesn't matter where you're listening. That's totally fine. We'll continue to do that. But if you're on YouTube and you want to be able to see us as well as on Patreon, we are going to see what we can do. And that is going to be a very short-term goal to reach. So, in fact, that actually causes me to want to ask you, Steve, did you order the webcams today?
No, because they won't ship today. So I'm going to order them tomorrow, and hopefully I can get them here. Well, I'll see what the shipping dates are, but if I got to put a rush on it, Russ, I'll put on a rush. You know?
Okay. Yeah, because I'm thinking what we're going to need to do is the sooner we get them, we're going to have to obviously do tests and stuff. In fact, I'll just put a disclaimer out there. The first time that this happens, there will probably be all kinds of technical glitches and malfunctions. Who knows? Maybe there's even a wardrobe malfunction. You never know. You just have to see what happens.
I feel the wardrobe malfunction will be on your side of the camera.
What makes you say that, Steve?
Yeah, about 30 years of experience, Russ.
Oh. Well, anyway, it's very exciting for us to be able to see if we can get this to work. If for some reason we can't get it up and running by next week, then definitely by the week after. But I'm pretty confident. I think that if the webcams can get delivered within the next couple of days, we can start doing some tests and at least get everything kind of up and running and good to go, so to speak. But just be forewarned, this is not the final version of what we're going to be doing. This is merely a way for us to take a step in the right direction.
A start.
Yes.
A new beginning.
Very much so.
And it's going to be a good time for a new beginning, too, because next week is going to be like a small reveal of the Xbox Series X, and I think PS5 as well. So it's going to be an exciting time.
It is indeed. And I think you bring up a good point about the remainder of the year. I think that there are quite a few things that are coming up that will benefit with us being on camera.
There you go.
For lack of a better way of saying it. And who knows? Maybe, I don't even know. Maybe by 2021, we'll actually have the set and stuff set up. But again, there are, like I said, it's a very fluid process. And probably a more accurate way of saying it, it's a more fluid state. It's a state of fluidity, Steve. That's what it is. Because even if we actually get all this stuff set up and whatnot, there's a very good chance that I'll be back in California working at the game studio, and we will not be physically in the same location. So we'll have to continue doing it. So all this stuff, there's a method to the madness, Steve. There's a reason. Right. We have webcams.
That's right.
So we'll have to see how it goes. But I, for one, am so happy that we have hit our 3-year mark. I think it's been a joyride for sure. I think it's really cool to see where we started, where we're at now, and we're just going to continue getting hopefully better and better. And I think it's a wonderful vehicle for us to be able to just geek out and talk about what's on our minds as it applies to video games and movies and any other type of area of pop culture. So that being said, what have you been watching or playing this past week, Steve?
Man, so my wife and I are one episode away from finishing this Jessica Jones crawl stretch out of a series. My goodness, we can't wait till it's over so we can start something new. Gosh.
Well, why are you watching it if it's that agonizing?
Well, because
does she like it and you don't?
Well, she likes it a little bit better than I do. But when we were looking at how all the Netflix Marvel stuff is playing out, they said you have to watch this before you get into something else. So we've been trying to find out what exactly we're going to be missing if we don't, or if we don't watch that. And I guess, I don't know, we're on the last episode and it doesn't seem like we missed much. I mean, there's very few details that we would have missed. I think we skipped the whole entire thing, but my goodness, we're so done with it. Man, it's the villain is not very interesting. All the characters not very interesting. Anyhow,
I still don't understand why you just don't. You should just stop watching it. I don't know why you're continuing to watch it if it's that bad.
Yeah, we just should stop it. Well, we have no choice after that. Well, we could watch the second season, but I doubt we will. I think we're just exhausted. Each episode is exhausting, but mostly because we're so tired of being strung out. We just want to be, it's one thing if a lot is happening and that there's a lot of excitement and you like the characters and, and at the end you're like, man, that was a ride and a half. But it's another thing if you're really just not interested. Anyhow, so I've been watching that. I finished up the second disc that I had for South Park with PC Principle, and I tell you, it's actually less funny this time around. But man, they really bring up some incredible points. Like it's so true of what it's about. But I don't laugh as hard as I've laughed at other episodes. And I thought I was watching it and I found myself not laughing. And then when I was later on in the day, when I was explaining to my wife about the episode, then it was funny and I was laughing so hard I was almost crying. But I don't know how. Anyway, I don't want to digress too far from that. But and it's interesting the way South Park has turned. By the way, I haven't even played. I have it downloaded to the hard drive. I haven't yet played the Stick of Truth or the Fractured Butthole.
See, I beat the Stick of Truth, and I have yet to start. Well, okay, I barely started the sequel, but I need to definitely get back into that, as well as a huge pile of other titles.
Right. And lastly, I am at the end of Ace Combat, and it's ending exactly the way I had predicted it would end. Funny thing, because I was.
Are you a soothsayer, Steve?
Pretty much. I guess it's still cool, but it does, leave something to be desired. Because I thought towards the end, maybe it's going to take a different turn. Sure enough, it's exactly the way I thought it was going to go. So I thought, all right, well, it is what it is. Glad it's on Game Pass.
Well, there you have it.
Anyhow, what about you, Russ?
I have been enjoying Legends of Runeterra, Steve, and it has been probably the game I've been playing the most over this past week. It's been pretty crazy how much I've gotten into the game, and I love it. I really do love this game. I think it is right up my alley in terms of the personality and character. I think it's great that it's a card game, and over the years, I've been expressing interest in some of these other card games, but I haven't really gotten into one and played it continuously. And this is the game that I think has hooked me. It is so fun. I know that they officially released the title on April 30th. So I was able to get into the open beta for about a week and a half or so. What's that?
Russ.
Oh, I'm sorry, Steve. We
thank you
got into the open beta. Well, you got into it for about 2 seconds. Well, actually, you know what?
It's been about
allow me to correct myself because that is wrong. You told me that you have continued to play it. So I think that it is an incredibly deep game. I think that what's really neat about it is it's kind of what we talked about when we had it as our topic of the day, which, by the way, I believe was episode 170. We talked quite a bit about Legends of Runeterra. So if you're interested in finding out more about our thoughts on that, you should definitely check that episode. But when it comes to the pedigree of all the characters that they have created, that their League of Legends game has been around for 10 years. That's an incredibly long time for them to come up with as many champions as they have and as many regions as they have. I don't even know how many champions there are in League of Legends, but I have heard it's in the hundreds. I mean, they have literally created, I think, at least a couple hundred, if not more, of these different champions. And so in the card game itself, we have but a scant few. Like there are so few champions that are in there, and that makes me super excited. And I mentioned this in the previous episode about how moving forward, this is going to act as just a natural way to continue supporting this title and adding more and more content. So it's just going to be this completely rich experience. And I think it goes without saying, when the game was actually officially released on April 30th, they dropped their newest region, which is the Bilge Waters, the Rising Tides. And it's essentially like their pirate region, which is so fun. I've been working hard at getting a bunch of wild cards and unlocking the different characters, and I unlocked the pirate board, and it is a stark contrast to some of the other regions that I've been playing, because most of the regions you see in that game are kind of more fantasy oriented, in the sense of like you have elves and you have people in medieval armor and that sort of thing. But the pirates is definitely a world of their own. And it has been a blast. Their entire strategy with that region is exclusive compared to any of the other regions, which I think at this point in time, what are there? I think there's a total of 6 regions now. Is that right?
You know, I'll start that game and I only see like 3 different regions on my end. So, I mean, I know the pirates are out and I did play them, but, or at least, you know, I went through the tutorials, but I don't know how I can actually specify which region of cards I actually want. I just choose most of the time the rough and tough, or whatever that one is, and I go with that one.
You know, they have like 6 or 7 regions already, but our buddy Nick, aka Big Baby Moose, he also got into Legends of Runeterra and he loves it. In fact, he told me to tell you he hopes that you stick with it because he wants to play you as well in the game. And it's been a lot of fun being able to customize the decks. You know, one of the things too is the art on these cards they're so good. I don't know if you know this, Steve, but if you have a card in your deck, you can, I believe it's like if you right click on the card, you press the eyeball and then all of a sudden it expands the card. So like it's like this full screen artwork.
I've seen it. I've done that many times. Yes.
What do you think of the art, Steve?
I think it's beautiful. I think they did a great job. I think they had a good time with it. I think they probably just told the art dudes, the artists, you know, just crack a beer, go off, have a great time, make some cards, come back and show us what you got. And they go, oh, right on, man, righteous. We'll go out and do that. And then they had a ball, and they were all in a great moods when they did it. And they came back to this L studio, and then they go, here's what we got. And then everybody looked at him like a deer in the headlights. Like, man, wow, you guys did great. We're going to throw all this up on the friggin' interwebs, and people are going to love it. I think everybody had a great day.
I think you're right. I think you're pretty close to what happened there, Steve. Pretty much on point. So anyway, been having a lot of fun with that. I've continued also playing in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I couldn't even begin to kind of tell you where I'm at, but there's a lot of long hair and a lot of big swords. So it's been... It has been a lot of fun. It's interesting to me being able to play a game like this at my age, because some of the personalities in the game, I don't know if it's because it's more of like a Japanese culture thing, or if it's more of an angsty teenager thing. I'm not exactly sure, but like Cloud, for instance, he really doesn't have very much of a personality. Is that the case back in the original?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Cause he seems to be kind of a negative Nancy, melancholy, just there's not a whole lot there, despite the fact that like there are all these girl next door women types that are awesome to be around. And it's like, why is Cloud this constant wet blanket?
Yeah, no, he's a wet blanket for sure. I'm wondering if Square did that because, I mean, they did script him to do do and say certain things, but I almost feel like since you're the character who plays him, I think they're thinking that the player will think about their own personality and put it for Cloud. I'm wondering if that's the case, because I was thinking of Final Fantasy VIII later on, and Squall, the main character, hardly had a personality too. He's like a blank canvas. I don't remember him doing anything like out of sorts or whatever. Like,
you think that's like a method for the gamer to be able to relate and bond and kind of like make up their own story with the main character?
I kind of think so, because it wasn't until like Final Fantasy IX that the character really had all the characters had strong personalities, including the character that you play. I mean, you could almost see him throwing a whoopee cushion under one of the characters' chairs, just being funny, being silly, being serious when you had to be. So I don't know. I'm wondering if that was maybe Square's intention with making Squall and Cloud how they are. Perhaps.
The game is beautiful, though. My goodness, the graphics engine is amazing. I am curious also how many versions, or not versions, but how many sequels of the game are we going to get? And even that's not very accurate. Like, I don't even know how to say it. Like, basically, how many parts? How about that? How many parts are we going to receive and have to purchase in order to get the full gameplay experience of Final Fantasy VII Remake? Because a lot of folks are considering there will probably be like 3 releases, but then apparently there was some sort, I think it was like a Japanese publisher or member of the press who was interviewing the director over at Square. And he was saying how he'd like to see more parts to this thing because there's just so much to do. I think I kind of have a little bit of a prediction here, Steve.
What's that, Russ?
If they go beyond 3, because 3, and I think I even said this a while ago, I know that 3 is kind of the magical number that consumers are willing to do. Like, because they view it as a movie, you have your part 1, part 2, part 3, and that's it. If they go beyond 3, I think they're going to do 7 parts. I really do. I think that is the one way that they're going to be able to try and convince the gamers to continue purchasing these different parts of the game overall, because it is Final Fantasy VII, and there is kind of a poetic bookend, if you will, to that sort of thing. Whether or not people are willing to purchase all 7 parts or not, or if they're even going to do that, I have no idea. But just I'm here to tell you, Steve, I would not be surprised if that was the case.
I just hope they do a little number on it if they end up releasing it for the Xbox, because PlayStation, I mean, I said this a couple episodes ago, but they bring it out for PlayStation when we're right on the verge of having just incredible systems come out the door. And it almost makes no sense, because everybody who's playing it now is going to go, okay, yeah, there's going to be a graphics update, maybe, but ultimately it was made to run on the PS4, not the PS5. And so everything after this is going to be able to run on the PS5 just fine and look, amazing. But the way this game was intended, it's almost like the software on your phone. Like if a new iOS comes out for your phone, okay, well that's great, and you get all the newest features, but it's not going to run as good as it will on the new phone in which it was designed for. And so I'm almost thinking PlayStation, Sony got the new game when it was released, and they had all the excitement, but after that, I'm hoping that they just go to Microsoft and say, hey, we're not proprietary to Sony, and what do you guys think? And you want to bring out Final Fantasy, this game, to Microsoft? I'm sure the gamers are going to love that too. And I don't know. I would think that is a phenomenal idea, and I hope they consider it. I hope that is going to be the case.
Yeah, we're going to have to see. I think at the very least, there will probably be a timed exclusive with Sony, and then after that, they could possibly bring it over in that regard. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to see how that works out. To round out my week, though, I received a couple of extra days off. I actually have a 4-day weekend because we, as a team at 31st Union, met our milestone, and Michael, who's the studio head, actually granted the team some extra time off to be able to recharge our batteries and reflect and refresh ourselves and just get ready for the next phase. And so I for one, really appreciate that. Definitely a big thank you to Michael for allowing us to have a couple extra days, because I know that everybody has been working super hard on what it is that we're doing. And I know for myself, I can speak for myself, I needed that extra time. And I really do feel like I'm ready for getting back to work and everything else. And I'm really glad that I have a little bit extra time here with the family before doing so. One of the funny things too is it has been about 2 months, maybe more, 2.5 months since I had a haircut, and like my hair was driving me absolutely bonkers. I could not stand how like scraggy and unkempt my hair was. And of course, we can't go to a barber because of the whole COVID-19 thing. So my wife ended up cutting my hair.
She gave you a quarantine cut?
She gave me a quarantine cut, Steve. That is correct. And it was a lot of fun. You know, my 5-year-old daughter was hanging out. We set up this little chair situation out in the backyard porch area. And we ended up using like an empty Michael's plastic bag as like my, I don't know. What do you call those things that they drape over you? Like those little coverings?
It's a man bib.
A man bib. Yeah, exactly. A body-sized man bib. But anyway, we ended up like making a small hole on the bottom part of the bag for my head to fit through. And so I have this upside down Michael's plastic bag on my body. And then I have some sort of like worn, bleached out pink towel that's on my pants, my lap, you know? And my wife has never ever cut hair before. She did a good job. I gotta say, like when all was said and done, I was really impressed. I was like, man, this looks really good. And she ended up using she didn't even have like barber scissors or anything like that. She used like her huge, those huge scissors that she has with like the golden handles. You used to like cut Christmas wrapping paper with or whatever.
Yeah.
And so
the scissors you don't want near your face. Yeah, those.
Yeah, she kind of scared me a couple of times where like I almost thought that she was going to like cut off the top portion of my ear or something. She did jab me in the face a couple of times unknowingly with the comb because she was trying to, hold the comb and the scissors in one hand. And that was pretty funny. But overall, though, man, she did a really nice job, and I look a whole lot better than I did before she went to work on me. That's for sure. So big shout out to my wife for that. And honestly, I mean, I told her, I said, hey, if you're down for doing this sort of thing once a month, that would save us money. I mean, like that would be a great money saver. And not to mention the fact that she, like what she does, she's only going to get better at. So I do think part of it has to do with the fact that she's an artist. And so I think she has kind of that natural instinct to like get things to look good and everything else. I don't know. I do think that there is a contributing factor when it comes to that. So
did you check the back of your head to see if she ended up etching something back there artistically?
No, she did threaten that she was going to I can't remember what she said. She was like going to write her name or I don't know, something like that. I was like, oh, there's so, I don't know, little hair that's there. I hope you don't do anything like that, but no, she did a great job. And, Vivian absolutely loved it too. She was watching and curiosity and everything else. So a good times. And other than that, we were, checking out Streets of Rage 4, which we're going to jump into. Well, put on your early 90s throwbacks. It's time for the topic of the day. Topic of the day is the Streets of Rage 4 impressions. This is a game that was released earlier this week and is a throwback to the classic Sega Genesis fighting brawler, better known as, of course, Streets of Rage. We had Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3 back in the day. There is a new developer who has actually painstakingly gone through and has done a facelift, if you will. That seems to be kind of an ongoing trend with all these remakes of classic games. But Steve and I
don't mind in the least, and the least,
in the least, yes. And I agree. I don't mind it at all either. I think that we have been very fortunate in the sense that these remakes that have been coming out have been love letters to their respective properties, and unless it goes downhill and becomes like these horrible experiences, I say bring them on, keep them coming. But we ended up the other night sitting down at our own respective couches, if you will, and we were able to play on Xbox Live Streets of Rage 4 co-op. I gotta say, I'll start off with my initial high-level impressions of this. It was such a callback. To me, it was a wonderful experience of nostalgia where I was brought back to being in the, kind of the early to mid 90s with you at mom and dad's place, and we're playing through Streets of Rage. And it was such a, I don't know, it was like an answer to that genre that had been kind of dormant for a while on the Sega Genesis, if you recall. Like, they had certain games like Double Dragon and Golden Axe that were very much in the same genre as what Streets of Rage was, but there was kind of a period of time there where you didn't really have anything coming out, and then finally Streets of Rage came out, and I think it was almost like Sega's answer to Capcom's Final Fight, because Final Fight at the time was this hugely successful brawler as well, and the Super Nintendo was the benefactor for that for the longest time until they finally brought Final Fight over to the Sega CD. And of course, they called it Final Fight CD at that point in time. And we had Guy as well as Cody and Hagar as playable characters in that particular title. But Streets of Rage itself was a lot of fun to play. It was definitely one of the jewels in Sega's crown. And so I was very tickled, especially when they had made the initial announcement of the game in development. And of course, now that we're able to play it. What did you think of it?
I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was a nice drawback from the game. I used to wake up early to play before I went to junior high. And I loved it back then with all the music, and I always had fun with those brawlers. I mean, I know they're just button mashers and the stories, whatever, and you do the same moves as the same guys with different color trench coats, so they're basically the same person. But I just think it's great. Sometimes you need to dive into a story in a game, and sometimes you just need a brawler and a button masher. And I thought it was absolutely fun. I thought in some ways it was actually better than the other Streets of Rages, because the other ones were really taking themselves a bit too seriously, and especially later on when they had Street Fighter moves in them and stuff. I'm like, yeah, probably not. This is probably not the thing. And this time it actually kind of makes sense because it's a little more ecstatic. It's a little more flamboyant, but it has a lot more fun with it too, I think. And, with the different art style, I think it really works. So in a way, I wasn't blown out of the water. I mean, it's an Xbox Live title that you can get for $3.99 on Game Pass. And that was a bonus. I think it's a title that, it was. Yeah, I love Game Pass. Hashtag Game Pass. So... Anyhow, I had a ball. I mean, we almost finished it in a night. Of course, we were playing on normal difficulty, but I think it was great. I hope to continue with it and unlock some more characters and keep going.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that we didn't beat the game. We tried beating the final boss twice, and then at that point, it was like 2 a.m. I was like, Steve, I've got to go to bed. I don't know if you were feeling tired or not. I was pretty exhausted.
I was starting to feel tired, but because I was pretty amped to beat the game, I didn't want to look at the clock, and then I did, and then I really felt tired, and then I still had to get in the shower and get ready for bed. So by the time that was done, it was about 2:45, and so I slept until noon today.
Yeah. I pretty much did the same thing, which was kind of funny, but. It is an interesting thing to be able to play a game like that because it's very reminiscent. It harkens back for me the times when we would go to the arcade to play games like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade or the Simpsons arcade or Double Dragon the arcade.
Don't forget X-Men.
Absolutely. Can't forget about X-Men. X-Men was a great game. And they were specifically designed to be quarter munchers, they just wanted to get as many quarters from people as possible. And so they designed the gameplay mechanics to do just that. But at the same time, there was something that was alluring about it, that it was so fun to do, despite the fact, like you said, you were essentially button mashing and taking out different characters, that sort of thing. And when it comes to playing Streets of Rage 4, that I don't know about you, but that feeling was still there for me, where like despite the fact that we were just doing the same kind of beat 'em up moves over and over and over again, and even the various baddies that like you were saying, like it's a lot of them were the same group of baddies, except like they wore different colored trench coats or the different colored pants or whatever it is. There was still something that was very zen about the whole thing. And I think part of that is the fact that I was able to play with that game, or through that game, excuse me, with you. I think that if I was playing by myself, it would be still fun, but it wouldn't be at the same level of fun factor as it was. And I think that's part of, or a big part, I should say, of the secret sauce when it comes to that style of game, is when you are playing with other friends and people, that's where it's a lot of fun to be able to have just a lot of characters running amok on screen, doing all kinds of special abilities. And sometimes you get lost in all of the visual eye candy, but I don't know, like sometimes I don't necessarily need some sort of next gen crazy graphic experience, although I do love those as well. But sometimes having just a nice 2D side scrolling brawler is exactly what the doctor ordered. Do you agree?
Yeah, actually I do. I mean, I don't want a ton of them. I mean, if Final Fight and Streets of Rage and the X-Men, Turtles, Simpsons all came out as, you know, button masher brawlers, I think I'd be pretty sick of it. But we haven't had one of them in a long time, and I've been playing Flight Simulator, and I've been playing some, you know, third-person shoot, and you know, some RPG stuff, and so yeah, this kind of fits right in. It feels great.
Let's talk about the art direction of this game.
Okay,
what I think is also one of the strongest suits of this game is the fact that there has been a very definitive direction to the style of art in this game. And really, if they had maintained like kind of like the same kind of look as like the older games, I think that would have been a mistake. I think it's really cool to see how they found this perfect medium of, it's almost like this hand-drawn like 2D cell animation. And I think it acts as an homage to kind of how the classic 16-bit Genesis titles looked, but giving it a proper facelift and maintaining the world that it's in. Because I, for one, really liked all of the characters that were in there. And it was really fun for us to be able to see some of the classic characters from the older games. You know, they're all spruced up and I don't know. Again, it's that nostalgia that's kicking in, but it's also that love letter of, hey, we know that everybody loves this game. We love this game. That's why we're making a sequel to it. So here you go.
You know, one thing I wish they added though is you know, through the game you're buying a bunch of, you're not really buying, but you're picking up money and you're getting points. And yeah, the points, I guess you can get enough of those and you can get an extra life, and that's fine. But I wish they they did give you a way to like unlock more moves, more additional, you know, moves that you could do, because you learn what you can do, which was like, you know, the throw and the jump and the kick and the punch, and you got a couple special moves and whatnot. But I mean, after a while, you kind of think that, man, we've been fighting a whole lot. I might have learned something new as I've traversed and kicked butts across New York City. You know what I'm saying? I think that'd be like the one thing I would add is something that you could spend your points on. Like if you didn't want to get like the extra life, which you actually do need, but if you get like, if you have 2 or 3 lives, I don't even think you can get more. I don't know. I forgot. I kind of didn't look. I mean, when we start a new level, we always continue to have like maximum amount of lives. So I always thought, you know, okay, well, what if I could just spend it on something else instead of just trying to get that extra life? I don't know. You know, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, we haven't really had a deep dive with this game, because we played with it for one evening, and granted, that's all we needed to get to the last boss. But at the same time, it does make me wonder what other types of abilities and moves that could potentially exist. Because if you notice, there was that one time I was going through the menus and they had a lot of little like splash art tutorials as to like how to do different types of moves and stuff. And there were, I think, 2 or 3 things in there that I don't think I was aware of. So it'll be interesting to see like through another playthrough what all else is in there. But yeah, I don't really suspect that there is like a huge tree of moves that you can unlock as you progress through. I think that it was specifically designed to just be that classic brawler. When it comes to the animation side of things, this is another aspect that I for one was very happy with. I was very glad to see how fluid all the characters moved, and whether it was their idle animations or their battle combat animations, having the baddies do their thing. I think it was a wonderful compliment to the art direction and the graphics. One of the things I thought was really cool was that there is kind of an anime sensibility to the animation itself, you know, and maybe even to a certain extent the graphics with the characters and that sort of thing. Did you pick up on that?
No.
See, I thought there was. I thought like what it wasn't overtly so, but I did pick up on kind of this nuanced anime-ish kind of feel to not necessarily the world, but some of the characters. It was, I don't know. It was like a combination of like comic book, graphic novel, and anime, kind of a cross-pollination, if you will. But I dig it. I thought it was great. I thought it was like all the levels were also filled with like background animations and just bringing the static world to life. And also, like when it comes to the graphics too, I was really satisfied with the just the different locales that we were fighting in. Did you dig them?
Oh yeah, I did. I thought they were really fun. I mean, I think they did a lot with the main ground, the foreground, and the background, because there was stuff that you were passing in, and there was stuff that was happening in the background where if you weren't even looking, if you were just solely focused on trying to accomplish something, you would have totally missed it. But if you took a little second to look around, you would have definitely appreciated it. I mean, I think, remember when we were in the sewer and we're like, man, this is really feeling like we'd see the Ninja Turtles, and then we look back and then there was like some like graffiti
Shredder
that
thing,
just like Shredder. I'm like, yes.
Well, and I think that's one of the cool things. I'm glad that you brought that up, because there it was this, I don't know, the self-awareness that the developers had when it comes to these certain things, and it applies to what I mentioned earlier about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game, in the sense that it was part of the same beat 'em up genre that was so popular back in the early 90s. And there was even a level 2 where we're going down this type of elevator situation that was going down at kind of an angle, which was like straight out of the Konami Ninja Turtles arcade game. And again, it didn't really bother me, just because once again, you can tell that there was a certain type of self-awareness that the developers had. And like that the subway level that you're talking about, or the sewer level, they even had like glowing green ooze, you know, that we kind of joked around about as well. So I thought that was pretty fun. When it comes to the music itself is very much in line with trying to maintain kind of like that early 90s. I don't even know, like, how would you describe it? It's not necessarily hip hop, and it's not rock and roll. It's I don't know. It is the kind of sound that you would hear in movies and games for its time, though, of like trying to sound hard.
Right. Yeah. No. It's definitely. I mean, there's definitely some 80s to early 90s beginning hip hop in there, where it's kind of goofy, or sometimes trying to be serious, but they didn't know how to really work the bass with the electronic beats yet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not trying to sound hardcore, but it's trying to give you like a good like 2-step beat kind of deal. But I mean, other levels will have some pretty wacky kind of hard action movie kind of, you know, MIDI music to them. That's a lot better than MIDI, but anyhow. But yeah, so for example, some of it actually harkens back to Streets of Rage 1 and 2, where you kind of had like pan flutes playing with the synthesized like with the pan flutes or whatever. I don't know. I mean, it sounds good, but you can definitely tell, like, yep, that's not music. That's probably like smooth jazz to today's standards.
Yeah.
So
now, another thing that I was reading about was how the original Streets of Rage soundtrack is in fact embedded in this game.
Yeah.
And I think that there were a couple of songs that you picked up on, you recognized from one of the previous games, but I think there is some way as like a bonus where you can unlock some of the other, they may even have all the soundtracks of Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3. I know also that they have embedded the actual original game, if I'm not mistaken. I know at least the original graphics engine does exist in this game, and it's almost like the Halo thing where like you can switch back and forth in real time depending on like what kind of art style you prefer to play in. And I think, I could be wrong, but I do believe that the actual full games of Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3 are included in this game somewhere, but you have to unlock it.
Wonder if those were those little notches on the meter where after you get past a stage and all your points are adding up to something, or they'll give you a little progression on that meter, but we're like, what are those 3 notches that are there? Those are either got to be characters or something else. And I wonder if you can open up or unlock the 3 original games with those 3 notches, Russ.
I think you're onto something with that, because those notches, I was like, what? I don't know what that is, but I think you could be right. That might in fact be what it is. Like if you keep playing and you increase your overall score count, that might be kind of the rewards that you get, which I think is pretty cool if that's the case. Do you think it's cool, Steve?
I think it'd probably be cool for a minute, but then I want to go back to the regular graphics, because if you've played, there's discs out there that you can get where you throw them in the machine, and they'll have a 4x3 window, and they'll do their best to increase the resolution, but ultimately it's still 16-bit like pixel stuff, and it's actually hard to play and hard to watch as compared to what graphics are today. So to go back there, you might go, whoa, cool, this is great. And then after about 15 minutes, you're like, let's go back to the other game. I'm getting a headache.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree. I think that'll be fun to check out just for, once again, nostalgia's sake. But then I would quickly want to go back to the facelift, because, I mean, again, the graphics in the facelift I think are really cool. And also, too, we haven't talked about the characters. I think that what's really cool is, so you have Axel and you have Blaze, which are the kind of the mainstays from the original Streets of Rage series, but now you have Cherry, and who's that hulking dude with the cyborg arms? What's his name?
Floyd.
So you have Floyd that's in there. That's a new character. And then we unlocked Adam, which Adam, I believe, is also one of the OG characters from the original trilogy of Streets of Rage. On top of that, I think there are additional characters that can be unlocked as well. I think there are probably about, I want to say 7 characters total, something like that. Because if you recall back in the original trilogy, like there was that one kid. There was like a kid who was on like rollerblades or something,
right,
that was one of the characters. And then I think there was kind of a wrestler type, wasn't there?
Yes.
So I think those 2 are definitely in this game, in addition to Adam. And then I'm not sure if there are any other characters that I'm forgetting. Can you think of any others?
No.
Okay.
I cannot.
So I think there are probably a couple of more that are unlockable. And again, I'm such a sucker when it comes to the unlockable stuff. I think, again, this harkens back to more of the old school ideology when it comes to games, where the more you play the game, the more goodies you can unlock, and then it extends the life cycle of that game, as opposed to, oh, I enjoy this game, I want there to be more to it. Well, then that's going to cost you, another $20 or $30 or whatever through DLC or through microtransactions, whatever. And I don't know. I think that is, in fact, a lot of fun to be able to do. I think when it comes to a game like this, though, I think this is a game that even after we beat it and we've unlocked everything, it is like I could see us every once in a while being able to come back, just being in the mood for a Streets of Rage game, because again, it doesn't require like your 100% attention and focus in order to play the game. Like you could just be sitting there doing whatever and you just want to, I don't know, have fun mindlessly beating cartoony characters to a pulp while you chat on your headset. You know what I'm saying?
You know, yes, but I've been thinking back. I think in the very rear folds of my brain, I'm almost positive that there was the kangaroo that we saw in the bar. I think
was so random. I'm like, where did that come from?
I'm almost positive he was a character you could unlock in one of the previous games, like maybe the third one or something. I've been thinking about it, and I'm almost positive. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. Where I think you can unlock the kangaroo. He's got like boxing gloves on, and he just does a bunch of punches. I think he like leaned back on his tail and did some kicks or something like that. I forgot, but I think the kangaroo was a playable character in the previous Streets of Rage, like the one. I think it was 3.
Now that you explain that, your description of the kangaroo's place in Streets of Rage, gosh, man, like that. I have some sort of fractured memory of that. We should totally Google that. I'm sure there's got to be something out there that has pictures of it. But we'll have to take a look at that.
You know, one thing I'm glad they did though is from Streets of Rage 1, you had like this special ability where you basically call in the cops. You're here getting fisticuffs with all the bad guys, punching and kicking, but you know the cops aren't doing their fair share, I guess. But they'll bring the guns, the big guns, when they're called in. And so, you know, I think one, you know, depending on if you were, you know, which character you were, this would be different. But one, you had a bazooka, and the guy would, you know, shoot it in the air, and it would land and do like this big fiery, circly explosion. And then another time, I think somebody like shot a bunch of like exploding shells or something like that, and so they would land and they'd explode kind of around you. And I forgot what the third one was, but I'm kind of glad they did away with that because that's only so. But more so like bigger special abilities, I think are much better translated into the game. Like, okay, you know, you do one, you can execute one big move, but then it'll take a while for you to be able to do that once more. So I'm glad they decided to go that route.
Yeah, I definitely love that. If I had a particular critique of the game itself, I would say that it was a little unnerving to see how like every single police officer was like this Caucasian dude with a mustache.
Yeah.
It was a little bizarre. It was like the entire police precinct were white males who like, and the body types were kind of weird too, in the sense that like they were strong, but they were fat. It was like this weird fat, strong thing that they had going on. But I know that they were trying to be silly with that, but I don't know. For some reason, it kind of stood out to me. I was kind of like, okay, well, so be it. Let's continue. And you're right, though, by the way, I was looking up while you were talking, and there is, in fact, some sort of way, there's like a hidden character that is that boxing kangaroo that existed in Streets of Rage. That's pretty funny. There was also like an old man character, like a main character from Streets of Rage 3 that you could play as. So it makes me curious if he also exists as an unlockable character.
I think he'd be pretty old from Streets of Rage 3 to Streets of Rage 4.
Well, again, I mean, this is designed to be kind of a, you know, throwback to the classics.
True, yeah. Although, what's the dude in the white shirt's name? What's his name? Adam? Oh, Axel.
Axel.
You can definitely tell, like, they made him age quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's so funny, like, looking at these pictures of, like, I mean, there's a huge difference between the graphics of Streets of Rage 4 versus the classics. No question whatsoever. But I, for one, am very grateful that they decided to move forward with this. And I think that if you're a Sega fan out there and you enjoyed the Streets of Rage series, you really are. You're going to like this a lot. And also, even if you're just a fan of like the classic brawlers, it's a fun game to sit down with and remember like those quarter crunchers back in the day. I've got nothing but fun things to say about it. And honestly, I hope they continue. I hope that they make enough money that they're able to make a Streets of Rage 5. I think it'd be continuing through this whole Metro City thing and having more characters they introduce. And even to your point, Steve, like being able to perhaps inject even more different types of fighting styles and abilities and over the top goodness when you call in kind of your ultimates or your special abilities. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But what are your concluding thoughts?
Yeah, I think if you have Xbox Game Pass, you're gonna do yourself a favor and get it, because why not get it and have some fun for free versus paying, what was it, $28 for it?
Yeah, it was like $28 or $29. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, $28, $29. I mean, that's not even very expensive. But I mean, if you can get it for free, shout out to Xbox Game Pass. I think it's great, and I think they did a wonderful job with the music and the characters, and the overall fun factor was even higher than I think it was last time, and I had fun.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Joygasm. Make sure you tune in next week. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to check out patreon.com/Joygasm, which is spelled JOYGASM, and consider becoming a monthly contributor. You'll get exclusive perks and early access to the show. Not to mention, it really helps us continue doing what we love to do. Also, you can follow us on social media and YouTube. Just do a search for Joygasm TV. Last but not least, you can do a search for Joygasm TV on Twitch to see us stream our gaming adventures live. We'll see you next week.